You're listening to the Messengers of Hope Mission podcast with your host, Bob Gardner.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Glistening Glass. Glistening Glass is my company and is a residential window washing and gutter cleaning company. We service the northern Hillsborough and southwest Pasco County area. If you're interested in having your home windows or gutters cleaned, now is the time to call. 813-404-2300. That's Glistening Glass. I want to welcome everybody to the Messenger of Hope Mission podcast. This is season 3, episode 12, and I've got a lot to share today, but before I do, I want to talk about a few housekeeping things. So first, we were going to do a garage sale in April. However, we're going to hold off until October. First, we don't have as much stuff as we did last time, and the uncertainty of the rain and the heat, that we're starting to get more often, and I say that today on a day that has been really cold. As we are getting into the warmer weather, it just doesn't make sense to do one again so quickly when we can wait till October and be better prepared for it. So we will be doing that sometime in October, so check our Facebook page for that. Secondly, the Messengers of Hope Mission podcast now has its own Facebook page. So I'm not going to be putting posts on the regular Facebook page anymore for Messengers of Hope Mission. It's going to be simply on the podcast page. The reason for that is, first, we don't want to muddy the page with too much stuff about the podcast, because that is the information going out about where we're doing stops, work days, things like that. And we want that to be accessible and easy to find rather than having to sift through things like the podcast. I want the podcast to give that information as well, obviously. People listening to the podcast typically are listening to get the stories and get the news of what happened that week. Okay, enough of housekeeping things. Let's get into the actual podcast itself. So I want to share a little bit about this past weekend. We went out to our stop in Newport Richey, and we had to move locations. You might have remembered from the previous podcast, we're using a parking lot that is owned by a new company now, and of course, they would prefer that we are not there. Legal issues, there's liability and things like that, so we completely understand. We found a new location that is, maybe a quarter of a mile away from the previous one, and it's on a busier road. It's on Ridge Road in Port Richey rather than on Congress Street in Newport Richey. It's literally about a quarter of a mile away, and so far it seems like it is going to work out really well. Now, this past Sunday we had a plan in place to get everyone prepared for this. I had one of our volunteers, Clarence, go to the old parking lot, and he stayed there pretty much the first hour and a half, 2 hours. Of course, we got there early, by the way, and he was there for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and he was directing people to the new place, anyone that may have not gotten the announcement that we were going to be moving. Meanwhile, I got the bus ready, and we went to the new stop over an hour early. We wanted to get there early so that we could get it set up in the parking lot, as we had no time to prepare for this and let people know where we would be. So we wanted to get there early to kind of get things going right the first time. Of course, just as Murphy says, Murphy's Law, that there was a problem right away. If it can go wrong, it will. And there was a semi-truck parked right where we were planning on parking. And the parking lot was already full of cars. All the people waiting in line already for the food. And of course, they were standing right where I would have parked next with the semi-truck there. As things worked out, we parked up front, so we were right on the street, and the parking lot filled up even more very, very quickly. As we were there, we ran into some, logistic issues that we have to figure out as we go, such as there is a store right next to the parking lot we're using, and people were parking in their parking lot. So we got to work on figuring out how we keep people out of parking in that parking lot, because we don't want that store to be upset with us or to even affect their business. We want to be good neighbors with the people around us. But once we got started, everything seemed to work really smoothly, and frankly, it was really smooth. We had a lot of volunteers in place, and we had brought extra food because we really didn't know what to expect. And I'm so glad that we did bring extra food, because we're set up and ready to go by about 2:10, 2:15, something like that. And we typically open up at 2:30. So we opened up early because there was already a long line, and we were there early. So we decided to get people out of the heat and get started. And it's a good thing we did, because we were there till a little bit after 4, and people kept coming. We had enough food, thankfully, but towards the end, we were starting to run out of certain items. We had run out of frozen food by that point, with the exception of the hams that we were giving out for Easter. And we had other foods like, muesli cereal, but we didn't have regular cereal anymore at this point. So it was a case of what we have left. And of course, we tell people we will stay there until 4 o'clock, or we run out of food, whatever comes first. Thankfully, we did have food, and as we were packing up and getting closed up, we had one more car pull in, and we were able to give them them basically some supplemental groceries and a ham, which, they were very, very appreciative for. So I'm thankful we were able to do that. I'm thankful for all the volunteers that really just jumped into action when that car pulled in the parking lot. It's amazing to see that they're all willing to make sure that people get the food that they need. We had a bunch of new people that had showed up, some people that had never even heard of us before, didn't know that we were even around the corner, even so close. They had passed us, hundreds of times and never saw us once. So now we're in a much more visible location, and we had a bunch of families show up. I'm telling you, we had over 100 more people in line this past Sunday than we typically do. Now that represents a lot of people because that's just one person from a family. So that can be anywhere between another 100 to another 300-400 people that number represents coming through the line. And like I said, we had enough food, thankfully. We're already making our plans for April 7th, which is the next time that we'll be in that area. And we're going to make sure that there is a lot more food on the bus and that we were better prepared for the growing number of people that show up. Hopefully we'll be prepared for the amount and that we don't get too many new people. Of course, we want to grow and we want to be able to help the people in need, but at the same token, we need to be able to grow into that and not just thrown into a situation where we're doubling or tripling the numbers every single time. We also had some other pantries that happened this past weekend. We had one in South Odessa, which is the Messenger of Hope Mission at Church of Odessa, and that's on Saturday mornings. We had our Messenger of Hope Mission at Emmanuel Baptist Church in Port Richey, which happens on Saturday mornings. And of course, we had the Messenger of Hope Mission at Messengers of Hope, the actual physical location, from 12 to 1 on Sunday. And of course, we had more people there as well. All of our locations seem to be growing in number, and that is both an exciting and a sad thing all at once. Sad because, more people are needing food, but exciting because more people are finding out that we are there and we are able to help more people. And that is an amazing thing, I think. And tomorrow we're starting our new pantry in Lutz. Now this will be Messenger of Hope Mission at North Tampa Church of Christ. And that one is scheduled from 1 to 2:30 p.m. on County Line Road at North Tampa Church of Christ. This will be the very first one. We're going to get there early so we can go over with the volunteers, what we need to do and how we set up and things like that. And I will be there for the first one. And then over the next couple, 2, maybe 3, I'll show up as well and teaching the person that will be running that one. Chris Ray will be running that one. And I'll be teaching her what she needs to do and how to handle things. And eventually, I'll be handing over the reins of the Thursday one to her. Hopefully, even next month, I'll hand over the reins to her and let her run it. I'll just be there to help and be a support to her as well. So that is this Thursday. We don't know what to expect. We're planning for about 50 people, but you never know. Word gets out and things can just explode. So basically what we're doing this Thursday is we're bringing enough food for 50 people. That includes frozen food, and we will set up and get ready, and it'll be the same thing, 1 o'clock or until 2:30, or we run out, whichever comes first. And as word gets out, I'm sure it will grow, and we will grow with that as well. I'm excited about that. I know Chris is excited about that. I know North Tampa Church of Christ is excited about that. I've talked to a few of the people there, and I'm excited. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, please contact us. As a matter of fact, we need someone that is able to and has a trailer, someone that can pull a trailer behind them, because there's certain things that we put on a trailer to bring with us, and we can't do that this week because we don't have the ability to do that. So that's kind of the news for the pantries for this week. Now, last night I was able to get in a grant writing class. Now, this was just a one-time hour-and-a-half long class on writing grants, and it was a pretty interesting class. I'd say about a third of what I learned was absolutely new. A third of it was stuff that I had heard before, but it was good reinforcement, and about a third of it was stuff that doesn't really apply to Messengers of Hope Mission. It would be for other things like, housing and elderly care, something that we don't do. But it was very eye-opening, and the one thing I did learn, the most important thing I learned is, I can probably write the smaller grants and stuff like that, and I can probably do it better than I'm doing now, but the bigger grants, I'm not going to be able to do those. At least I'm not going to be able to do them well. I'm practicing, I'm getting better at them, but that is something that, we clearly need someone that knows what they're doing. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a grant writer. It just needs to be someone that is proficient in writing. As they were sharing or teaching us last night, one of the things that they said is grant writing is telling a story. Now that to me is amazing because I love storytelling. I love listening to a good story. A movie that, can be on TV or Netflix or something like that. It could be the worst acted one. Matter of fact, we watched one this week that was so badly acted, but the story was so good that I didn't care how bad the acting was. That actually kind of made the story even more interesting to me. The fact that people would act so badly and the story was so good. But it's something I can really sink my teeth into the idea of storytelling, and that is something that I like to do. And now thinking about that in grants, I'm telling the story of Messengers of Hope mission in grant form. Now, it's not like talking on a podcast where I'm kind of going off the cuff and remembering things as I go. Writing is different. You get to write something, you get to think about it, go back, write some more, you get to mull over it some more and go back, and you do that multiple times. And that's one of the things they say to do in this class is to write something, wait a day, go back, read it again and read it again, and then make your changes and rewrite it and continue to do that. Get other people to read it and give you opinion on it, because something that you might say or think that you were saying in writing may not come across very clearly. It's very clear to you because you know what you're saying, but to somebody else it might be just a little bit odd the way you say it. So having someone else look at it. So all this stuff really resonated with me. The idea that I could tell a story, and that makes me a little bit excited to write the next grant. Now, again, I am not a grant writer at all, but I'm going to do everything I can to get the best grant I can for Messengers of Hope. If you're out there and this is something that excites you, if you are a writer and you are, proficient at writing, please reach out to me. I'll take help. I'm not too big. I'm not too proud. I'll take help on this, and I would be happy to have help on writing a grant. And the next thing I want to talk about, the last thing I want to talk about in the podcast, the major thing anyway, this goes right into grants and, of course, funding and, getting supplies like food for Messengers of Hope. Is Messengers of Hope, we are planning and working out the details of starting an ambassador program. Now, an ambassador program is for anyone that really wants to help Messengers of Hope. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean writing a grant or even fundraising. It could be those things, but it could be something as simple as doing a food drive. We have a lot of kids that need community service hours for school, for Bright Futures or something similar. And this would be a great way for them to be able to get those community service hours and be helpful to Messengers of Hope by the ambassador program. And by that, I mean people live in these gated communities or big communities like what I live in right now. And there's hundreds of homes in these communities. A teenager or a child or even an adult that wants to be a part of this could take flyers and put them on the doors of people's house and, say on this day, on this Saturday morning, we're going to come around and we're going to pick up bags of groceries. All you got to do is put the bag on your front step and we will be around between, 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. and we'll be on this Saturday. Just have it out there and we'll leave a little note of thanks. That would be like an ambassador club type thing. And that's something that we're looking for. And it would be a great way for kids to get community service hours, especially for high school, for Bright Futures. Just think about it. Making up the flyers, passing them out, all that takes time, but it's super easy, super simple. And you know what? If you get a couple 100 pounds worth of groceries, that is so important to Messengers of Hope. Without those groceries, we struggle. We have many sources to get groceries, but a lot of times those sources are also used by other people, and we can only get so much. We get truckloads of stuff. We got a trailer today with 2 half pallets on it, and of those half pallets, it was like half of it was cooking spray, another portion of the pallet was cookies, another portion of the pallet was sunflower seeds, and the final portion of the pallet was like some kind of seasoning. All great stuff, but it's not necessarily something someone can eat or make a meal out of. It's kind of fringe stuff. So we need things like canned goods, we need things like box goods like mac and cheese or pasta or hamburger helper, something along those lines. And that would be great for an ambassador, someone actually needing to do community service hours. And, as long as they are done reasonably, we would be happy to sign off for those in a school setting or whatever setting, a work setting, whatever it is. It would be so helpful for the Messengers of Hope. Another thing that we could use ambassadors for is we write grants for, as I was talking about last week, micro grants, and these are through Walmart's. And we could use people that are willing and have the time to go talk to the store managers. I've tried in the past to just make phone calls. It is very, very difficult to get the store manager unless you go in. Going in and talking to the manager usually bears the best fruit. The manager gets to see that people are excited about what Messengers of Hope is doing. And if it's just me going, of course they're going to know that I'm excited about it and that I am vested in getting the grant from them. But if I get people that are willing to go in as volunteers for Messengers of Hope and explain what we do, do and why it's so important, it really paints a picture of what Messengers of Hope is and gives them a reason to actually approve the grant. So if that's something you're interested, again, teenagers can do this and might actually be great for teenagers to do, especially if they're starting to drive on their own, or, mom and dad want to go grocery shopping, they can drop them off there and, do the shopping while the teenager starts to talk to the manager and paint a picture of what Messenger Hope does and why it's so important. Well, that is going to do it for this week's episode. I will tell you, I am still trying to get the scouts to do an interview. It's just been difficult because the person that, is going to do the interview works long hours and just trying to get that worked in. It's not their fault. It's just a scheduling thing. So I haven't forgotten. I'm still trying to get that in there. And of course, I'm going to try to get interviews of every single one of the location leads. I'm going to call them team leads because I don't know what else to call them, or team leaders that at each of the pantries. I'm going to get interviews going with them as well on here, because I'm sure you get tired of hearing me week in, week out. And I think you'd be excited to hear other people's perspective. And of course, I want to get volunteers' perspective as well. And if I can just share one last bit of news, we are excited, very excited. We have a new board member with Messengers of Hope Mission. If you come and volunteer with us, you will get to meet him. His name is Lazarus Gomez, and we are excited to have him on with us. The board as it stands right now is myself, Bob Gardner, Deb Jones, and Lazarus Gomez. And of course, Lazarus and his wife are volunteers of Messenger of Hope anyway, and they've been volunteering since they first found out about it about 6-7 months ago, and we're excited to have them with Messengers of Hope. And Lazarus, it brings a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience and a lot of hard work to Messengers of Hope. So thank you, Lazarus. Thank you, Maddie, for allowing Lazarus to be able to do this, and we look forward to the future with you guys as part of the organization. That is it for this week. I'll catch you guys next week on the Messengers of Hope Mission podcast. Okay, we've reached the point in the podcast where I get to make an appeal to you, the listener. Messengers of Hope is in need of volunteers to come work with us, not only at our various food pantries, but also at our warehouse in Odessa, Florida. We have all types of jobs for all types of people, everything from light cleaning to heavy stacking of boxes and sorting of food. Now, maybe you're listening, you're saying, hey, Bob, I don't live local, and it would take way too long for me to get onto a plane and fly there to come work for an afternoon. That's okay. I've got a plan for you as well. You can go to our Facebook page and find links for our payment portals. We have both Venmo and PayPal, and you can make a donation to Messengers of Hope that way. Still not enough? You can find our address and mail us a check, and we'll be happy to take that. Messengers of Hope is a registered 501c3 nonprofit, so any donations you make is 100% tax deductible. That's going to do it for this week's Messengers of Hope Mission podcast. In the words of Mother Teresa, if you can't feed 100 people, feed just one. This is Bob Gardner reminding you to make a difference in our world today. See you next time right here on the Messengers of Hope Mission podcast.